Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Southern Georgia Bay Chamber of Commerce, I'd like to welcome you to the candidates meeting in anticipation of the provincial election, which is going to be held on Thursday, October the 6th. My name is John Rose. I'll be your moderator. I'm going to introduce the candidates first. Starting on my right, I guess, or on my immediate left, I guess, is Peter Stubbings of the Green Party, Doris Middleton, the NDP, Fred Larson from the Liberal Party, and Garfield Dunlop, the Conservative Party. The format tonight is set up to allow as much time as possible for the candidates to speak and present their party's positions. There's a number of important issues to discuss tonight for them to discuss, and so we want to give them as much time to do as possible. We're going to start with an opening address by each of the candidates. We did a random draw at the beginning, and we're going to start with Mr. Stubbings and move along the table, and we'll each have 3 minutes to do that. After that, we're going to have some questions, and we've had questions, first of all, submitted from the media, a few that we're going to be asking, as well as questions that have been submitted by the general public. And if anyone has any other questions that they want to ask, then please wave down one of the chamber staff aside here. They've got paper and pens to write the questions down, and we're going to ask them. The questions will be asked through me. We don't screen the questions, but if there are 7 questions on the HST, for example, we probably won't ask 7 questions on the HST. And hopefully we'll be able to get through as many of the questions as we can. But of course, if your question doesn't get asked or not answered as you'd like, then you're always free to go and speak with the candidates afterwards, and I'd urge you to do so. At the end, each candidate will have the opportunity to do a closing, a 2-minute closing, and we just go in reverse order. And we're starting with Garfield Dunlop starting off the ending portion of it. All the answers will be timed by Denise, and you'll hear a bell, or I'm sorry, not by Denise, it'll be timed anyways, and you'll hear a bell, and that's for the candidates means they've got 7 to 10 seconds to wrap up their answer, and they've all agreed to try to do that. So, let's get started.
Good evening, fellow constituents of Simcoe North, mainly from the west side, and to the organizers of this event, and to fellow candidates. I thank you all for the opportunity to speak to you this evening. The NDP, and I believe many Ontarians also believe, that it is time for change, and that's real change in government in this province. Ontarians can continue to elect governments that put forward the same ideas that aren't working, that continue to make life more expensive, or they can pick change that puts people first. Not chief executive officers, or not big business, but changes for everyday people like you and me. I have lived in Simcoe North for 35 years plus. I think that almost qualifies me for being a resident here. I wasn't born and raised here, but I think 35 years should give me something. And the riding, this beautiful riding that we call home, has many positives with its close proximity to nature as well as its convenient location to the metropolis in the south. But it has not been exempt from job loss, job fragmentation, or underemployment that has lowered our standard of living. In fact, in this particular area of Simcoe North, there have been increased layoffs, plant closures, and fear of business sales that has made life even more so insecure. It's really feeling the impact of economic turmoil. After inflation, if you took into consideration, the average worker hasn't seen a pay increase in over 2 decades. Yes, that's 2 decades. So I'm sure when you went to the polls last time, this isn't what you voted for. You didn't vote for increased taxes. You didn't vote for big banks and corporations having a tax cut, but that's what you got. New Democrats, if elected, would make life more affordable for people. How? First, by taking the HST off essentials and making multinational corporations pay their share. The NDP agricultural platform also includes provisions for making rural employees eligible for a training tax credit to help them invest in Ontario. The NDP would include a Buy Ontario commitment. It doesn't make sense to send taxpayers money out of Ontario when we can do the job here. If elected, the NDP pledges that they will work with Ontario municipalities. A new 3-year plan to provide $70 million annually to help municipalities with their much-needed repair to infrastructure. We would continue to upload the cost for social assistance and other taxes. Municipalities should not be paying for programs they have no control over. We need changes that create jobs in Ontario and make sure that public dollars support local economies and local companies. We need change to meet our healthcare challenges, cut wait times for home care, emergencies, and specialists. And finally, we need to live within our means. These are changes that put people first. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
The next stage of tonight's meeting is questions, and the first number of questions we have been submitted by the media. We're going to start with Peter Stubbins and then move along the table. You'll each have 1 minute to answer the question, and then we'll stagger it as we go along. So the first question is the desire to control rising energy costs may conflict with efforts to promote conservation and pollution reduction. Can lower hydro bills and cleaner energy coexist? And how would your party make sure one doesn't negate the other?
I'm really not sure whether it can coexist. I think the fact is that we do need to realize that in many ways hydro is a very expensive part of our life. And since 1998, when the Hydro One was dismantled as it was by the then Mike Harris government, it has continued to raise. I think the biggest thing we need to think of is the fact that it does need to be cleaner, and the NDP is definitely committed to doing that by closing down coal, by not increase, even though nuclear isn't that, is not exactly, it doesn't appear dirty, but it has for years and years and years. We are committed to not increasing nuclear, and for that reason we need to look into the fact that some of the newer forms of energy are going to cost a bit more before we can pull it into line. But what's more important at this particular point in our life, our environment or our environment or our money? Thank you.
Facilities such as the Central North Correctional Center and Waypoint Center for Mental Health Care hasn't increased since 1987. Should this payment continue, or should the province implement an assessment-based system that would help municipalities collect additional revenue?
You said the first part of that again?
The heads and beds payments made in lieu of property taxes by the provincial facilities such as the Central North Correctional Center and Waypoint Center for Mental Health Care hasn't increased since 1987.
It would make sense to me that it should be increased. I mean, it's the people that are residing in those facilities are actually using parts of the facilities of the municipalities that they live in, whether they're living in an institutional setting or they are not. And I'm surprised that it has not been looked at to be increased at all since 1987. So if elected, I'm sure there would be some way to look at that because that is certainly affecting municipalities. Thank you.
Will you commit to fully funding all new community health centres announced by the Government of Ontario in 2005 and commit to expanding access to community health centres and Aboriginal health access centres for 250,000 more Ontarians by 2015?
The NDP platform is certainly in favor of community health clinics. I will say that I'm a little leery to totally agree to something with just one line without seeing the funding, but just to say that we believe that all Ontarians should have a primary care provider by investing in community health centres, midwifery services, and nurse practitioner clinics, and that by 2015 we feel 50 new healthcare clinics that provide round-the-clock healthcare services to an additional 250,000 people should be here. And I would echo some of my colleague Peter's remarks in that health clinics sometimes do offer that much more holistic type of health care than just going to your family doctor. But as far as committing to funding, I got to see the bottom line first. Thank you.
I think Garfield Dunlop's going to start with the next one, and we have a number of questions submitted on the dreaded HST. So this is the HST question. Is your party going to rescind the HST if you form the next government? And if so, how will you replace the lost revenues?
This is one area where the NDP and PCs do agree on with removing HST, and I think actually the NDP came out with it first, but we won't argue about it. And that is removing HST from electricity and from home heating costs, because of the fact that it does hit people very squarely in the pocketbook. And where would we find the money? We would find the money from the reduced corporate tax rate that large multinational corporations have. The corporate tax rate in Ontario for corporations has been reduced from 44% to 25% in the past 10 years. That's over $20 billion worth of tax breaks for them. I'm sure we could recoup the money from the HST by reducing their rate, or by increasing their tax rates.
What would each candidate do to address the erosion in the industrial base in Midland, Penetanguishene, and the disparity in family incomes between this area and nearby Ontario communities such as Barrie, Newmarket, Bradford, and Orangeville? And the writer makes the comment that families in this area have quite a significantly less disposable income than in some of those other areas.
I remember in past years in my involvement with the Labour Council when the strip coming into Midland was a very robust manufacturing area. It certainly has changed a great deal. One of the announcements that the NDP has made during this election campaign is their job creation tax credit, which is to create 20,000 new jobs over a year for the next 40 years by creating a job, get a tax break. You know, those billions of dollars I was talking about that corporations are getting, they're not going to get any of it unless they actually create a job, and a job that is sustainable, a job that actually pays at a rate that people can actually afford it, and there's not one or two or three jobs needed in order for somebody to support a family. Sounds easy and it sounds whatever, but it would certainly, I think, in many ways, give some kind of incentive for a company to open up if they were getting something for it. Thank you.
People living near wind energy farms are complaining of adverse health issues. Should there be a halt on further windmills until this issue is resolved?
I don't believe we have too many in Simcoe North, but I do know that there has certainly been an outcry in some of the areas of Kincardine, etc., with people having a number of health concerns. I don't think I have a party statement on it. I have a party policy on this. There are party policies that the NDP believes in, further efforts for green energy, which turbines certainly are. But there seems to have been enough of an outcry that probably looking at the kinds of things that happen, where they actually do put them, might assist it. I know I was in Scandinavia a couple of years ago, and they have a huge wind turbine system in between, just when you're coming into Copenhagen Harbor. So it's a fair distance away from people, and they can generate the wind there, but it's not right in their backyard. So maybe there's something to be learned from that, and maybe we should be doing further consult rather than just letting it spring up as even with solar energy, just letting it spring up wherever it should be.
What assistance would your party provide for seniors living at home? And some of the examples they give is home care, yard care, heating, snow removal, those types of things to allow seniors to stay in their homes longer.
This is pretty well the same, but for $1,200 spent a day for the Ministry of Health for someone in hospital, we're saying that 15 people could be treated at home. And that's quite an astounding figure to me, that and they do want to be treated at home. The majority of them would rather be there. I know I've gone through that with personal experience with family member, that as soon as they come back into the home, they perk up and feel so much better. So the NDP is certainly committed to increasing services and to eliminating a waiting list, perhaps looking at more becoming eligible for healthcare services, even if they are minimal. And another issue that we have problem with is we would end for profit the competitive bidding for home care services, because in many ways that causes confusion, insecurity, and a lot of the money when you're looking at private home care makes it very, very difficult, or private makes it very difficult for the staff that are working for those agencies.
I believe we're starting with Garfield Dunlop this time. Will your party continue with full-day kindergarten if you form the next government?
We certainly would continue to support full-day kindergarten. From the number of people that I've heard that have been involved in it, which is being phased in slowly, it certainly creates a bit more continuity with children. But on the other hand as well, we would continue to advocate and enforce that present childcare spaces that are there would remain open. There's been a bit of an issue with childcare spaces where they're thinking that they would need to be licensed for children that are older, are younger. And those spaces should not be closed because there's a waiting list for young children. And they just need to change, of course, the ratio of care. But that's also very important to take on full-day kindergarten throughout the system.
And this question's got a little bit of a preamble to it, which I understand is necessary for you to answer it. And it's brought by a gentleman who, since he worked for 36 years as a hydro systems operator, his concern is that is the blank check that our government seems to be prepared to write American solar producers to bring them to Simcoe North. And it says that things move forward, we're going to sign a binding 20 or 25-year contract without first completing a cost impact study so we can understand what 44-cent power is going to do to individual monthly bills 5 and 10 years down the road. And later, if we find out we can't afford these, we may be stuck with punitive conditions under the free trade agreement. So the question is, would you stand against signing a contract in Simcoe North until these cost impact studies determining the long-term payout consequences have been completed?
I will have to admit to my lack of familiarity with this contract as well, but solar is here to stay. What abilities we have to be able to review contracts that are set there, I guess, are something that I'm not really all that aware of, but we certainly do need to look at whether or not we are being taken by companies south of us, if that is what is happening. And I think probably a few times that has happened to us. But at the end of the day, the use of solar energy is not going to go away and shouldn't go away. So we just need to be a little bit more careful in how we actually come to those contract agreements.
The last question in this section is going to be started by Doris Middleton. I would like to know what programs you will put into place for mature workers who have lost their jobs in this area. I would hope they would get assistance with retraining rather than having to turn to welfare.
I've often been told a mature worker is an excellent worker. There are many people who have retired early in their careers and have gone on to have second careers in many ways. But as far as mature workers in this area, I know that we do have a number of training programs that are already available. At this point, thinking of what it is more that we would need than that. We have programs through the Learning Center. We have programs through the depending on what it is that they actually need. I guess that is the part that is there. It's what their actual skill is, and maybe there should be some kind of assessment to see what it is they have, and then of course whether or not there's a job in the area for them to do. So the NDP has actually, in their platform, with their job creation platform, there is a retraining component platform to it, and the piece in between is what is it that actually the mature worker does require, and that I'm not sure on. Thank you.
The candidates will have 2 minutes to do the final summation.
Well, I'd like to say thank you. You've been a very good, very friendly audience, and these are all candidates' meetings are whittling down to maybe 2 or 3 left, but it's a way to learn to know about the community when you bring your questions forward, and thank you very much for them. I do want to make one comment about a comment that Fred Larson made as to why we voted, why the NDP voted against full-day kindergarten, and it happened to be because it was part of a budget that would have, that has hurt our province, and that is why the NDP voted for it. It was not for the one particular piece, it was because of all of it that was there, so just thought I had to clarify that. The voters of Ontario, that mean you and me, including Simcoe North, have a very important decision to make on October 6th. Remembering that a vote for your local candidate is a vote for the kind of government that you want for the next 4 years. A vote for Garfield Dunlop, who is being our member of provincial parliament for 12 years, is a vote for Tim Hudak. You don't hear his name mentioned often here, but he would be premier. A man who changes his tune depending on who's listening. But he still reminds me too much of the Mike Harris years of cuts, slashing, and rewards for big business. A vote for Fred Larson, Liberal, is a vote for Dalton McGuinty, Liberal government. More lies for the next 4 years. More of the same as he brings us to the low point of the economy. A vote for Peter Stubbins is a vote for an important voice, but we know one that will not be government. But a vote for Doris Middleton is a vote to elect an NDP government led by Andrea Horvath, who at this point is 42% in the ratings, and a government that puts people like you and me first. Thank you.